Chapter 6. To the Darklands. I left the citadel without looking back and waded through the foggy, dark terrain that surrounded it. It was a quiet walk, and the light still lingered about me for a while longer as I traveled through a land that was becoming less and less green and far more misty and foul. A growl, a hiss, scuttle of footsteps. My senses were on high alert. I stopped and hid behind a large rock and peered around it. Ahead of me, festering about in the fog, was a roaming crowd of flesh-eating monsters. Ghouls, as Josh has named them on the sketchbook. Decrepit, rotting, zombie-like mutants. Josh depicted them so accurately in his drawings that they began appearing in my nightmares. Now, I saw those demons from my dreams, coming to life right before me. I did my best to remain hidden, thinking what to do as I listened to their unsettling snarling and gurgling. There were so many of them. I couldn't walk around them. They seemed to be everywhere. The words of the steward flashed in my mind.
Land where evil never sleeps. Your arrival to this land will be met with a quick demise, if you are fortunate.
Not sure what to do, I used the only ace I had up my sleeve. I took the VR headset off and called Callum.
Melinda?
He answered, sounding a bit surprised. Callum, I need your help. I've got the Blackguard's armor you told me about, but I just ran into the ghouls. They're everywhere. What do I do? How do I get past them?
Well, okay.
He said, caught off guard.
Give me a second to think.
Think fast. I don't have a lot of seconds. Okay, well, look. All those ghouls are AI. That's artificial intelligence.
Okay, well, look. All those ghouls are AI. That's artificial intelligence, which means their behavior can be predicted.
Yes, I know what AI is.
Good. Now let's get you back in the game. You got earbuds, right?
Probably, I said, certain that my son had some, since I'd accidentally vacuumed up a pair more than once. Hold on. I then rummaged through a few of Josh's drawers until I found some. Yeah, I've got them. Now what?
Connect them to your phone, then put one inside your ear.
Okay, I said, not thinking or questioning the logic of it.
Good. Now you should be able to hear me and play at the same time. But as soon as you see another player, you will have to disconnect me. We cannot afford any suspicion.
Gotcha. I did as he told me, able to hear him, and I was back inside the foul and barren wasteland, with all those ghouls still roaming about. Okay, what now?
Just walk carefully. Keep a distance from them. Keep the helmet on. They're afraid of the Dark Army, which is what you are with that armor. Remember that, so they shouldn't attack you.
I marched forward with solid, confident steps, even when they peered at me questioningly. They shouldn't attack me, right? Their narrow eyes were full of malice. But all of them kept crouching and jerking about, minding their own unsightly business, all except this one ghoul. He saw me and was far more curious and courageous than the others. And he followed me, snarling and scowling at my side, till I quickly whirled around and held my sword out toward him. Back, maggot, I yelled. Get back at once. My battle is not with you. Back to the shadows, creature of hell. The ghoul continued staring at me, scrutinizing me with those evil, empty eyes. He bared his sharp teeth and his face contorted in a foul rottenness as he moved to block my path, testing me. Callum, I've got a live one here. What do I do? He won't let me by.
You must have triggered it somehow. Probably stepped too close to it.
Okay, well, he's not going away now. What do I do?
Right. Stay calm. Don't run. You have to kill it. Make one fatal stroke quickly and sharply. No emotions. That's the only way to get rid of it without drawing the attention of the rest of the crowd.
I'm not really a killer, Callum, I faltered. We should have practiced it before.
Life doesn't prepare for everything, Melinda. I know you have it in you. You said so yourself. It's not the biggest or the strongest who...
I say a lot of shit, Callum, I screamed, unable to contain my panic.
Hit it, before the others see your weakness.
Other ghouls looked at us. Their attention appeared to be drawn to me as I faltered. Okay, here we go. I raised my hand up and swung it down. Bonk! I hit the ground. Not even close. The very motion was awkward and clumsy. The other ghouls noticed that which I feared they would notice the most, my incompetence. Fuck, I'm afraid I'm really bad at this, Callum, I confessed.
It's okay, just try again. If you take that one out, the others will go away.
I swung again. The ghoul easily evaded my hits by stepping back, and now the other ghouls began approaching me.
What happened? Melinda?
What do you think? I missed again. They're onto me, Callum. They know I can't fight for shit. What do I do? There are so many. I can't even take down one of them.
Try. Kill it.
I can't, I screamed. I yanked out the earbud. I felt lost, about to die. As one of them lunged at me, I nervously jumped back to avoid it. I panicked, stumbled back and began to run away from them as fast as my legs would carry me in the clunky armor. I couldn't even tell if I was running back or forth. I just went toward any place that was free of those ghastly things. I half ran, half stumbled deep into the thick haze, only to see a large, ominous figure running toward me, brandishing an enormous, beastly weapon. Paralyzed, I just stood there in the mist, awaiting my fate. In a blur, Barudark, the orc, charged past me, his eyes intensely focused on the horde of ghouls. With a few overhead swings, he smashed, cut, slashed them to bloody bits, splattering them with his brute strength. As I watched the onslaught, the one unrelenting ghoul, that first to provoke, made his way toward me, snapping his wide jaws in a most threatening manner, his demonic eyes flaring at me. Okay, here we go. I can do that. I began swinging my sword, and the creature reeled back, avoiding my blows. Again and again, I swung and he jumped away. As I began to grow weary from the swings, he abruptly pounced. I held up the shield just in time and crashed into it so hard that it knocked me backward and off my feet. Desperate and on the ground, I swung again and managed to nick the creature's shoulder. That small flesh wound infuriated the ghoul, and he pounced back again, jumping on top of my shield. My elbows were buckling from his weight. He'd soon crash me. Suddenly, my shield felt lighter. I could feel something was rolling away from it. It was the ghoul's head. As I moved my shield aside, I saw all the fallen, decapitated, and dismembered bodies of the other ghouls, the disgusting heap of carnage the orc had left in his wake. Barudark said nothing, and only looked at me distastefully. Thank you, I stuttered, as I struggled to catch my breath. Still, he just stared at me with that judgmental glare. What? I'm not a fighter, I admitted, as I removed my helmet. I've never done this, nothing like this. Never blinking, he began moving toward me. No, wait, I said, taking a few steps back to widen the gap between us. I told you, I'm no witch. Did you come to kill me? For an answer, Barudark rammed the blade part of his weapon deep into the earth and knelt before me, even lowered his head.
I will follow you until the end of darkness,
he loudly declared with his deep and rough voice. I was speechless. He looked up at me with wild intensity, burning in the bloodshot eyes, his large muscles tensing out of sheer determination.
Isabella is everything to me.
I couldn't believe he was offering to help me. I placed my hand on his shoulder and embraced him, despite all the gore and the sweat. He didn't exactly hug me back, but he didn't move away either. Thank you. Thanks, I said sincerely. Finally, I wasn't so alone in that dark, treacherous nightmare. Shortly thereafter, something else emerged from the midst, from the direction of the citadel. I squinted and realized it was a human, a man in armor and carrying a sword.
Step back, Barudark,
said Bransen with his sword drawn.
Leave her alone, you brute. What did you call me, human?
Barudark grunted, glaring at Bransen.
I'm not afraid of you, Barudark.
Barudark pulling his blade from the ground and marched over to meet him. Stop it, you two! No! I screamed. But neither of them paid any attention to me. Barudark easily smacked Bransen's sword away with his own, then grabbed him and pinned him to the ground, holding his neck with his huge palm.
You should be afraid of me, Humie.
Stop! I yelled again. I tried to pull Barudark back by his huge shoulders, but it was like trying to move a boulder. Let go of him, I pleaded. Barudark glanced at me as I tried to helplessly pull him away, then reluctantly released his hold on Bransen's neck. Are you all right? I asked, leaning to help the coughing Bransen to his feet.
I'm fine,
he muttered in answer, checking on his neck. Why are you here, Bransen? I asked.
To follow you till the end of darkness, Madrien. I believe in you.
Just as he answered, a woman appeared through the fog. It was the militia woman from the citadel.
Bransen!
Aundria? You followed me?
Of course I did. Did you think I wouldn't see you sneak out? You're coming back with me to the Lightkeep.
No!
What do you mean, no?
We haven't done enough for her. We need to find her body. Maybe she's alive. There will never be another like Isabella. You must do our best to find her. We can't just give up on her like Baden and Roald did, like you did.
Give up on her? Bransen, we went out on many expeditions in search of her. You should know. I know that it's unfortunate that we couldn't find her. But how many more must we endure? Many risked their lives to travel across the mountains. We checked every nook and cranny that we dared to go into, in caves and in mountains, even ventured as far as we could into the Darklands. We nearly got ourselves killed trying to track our last steps.
That's not enough. Madrien is right. We didn't go far enough. That's why she's here. We didn't go deep enough into the Darklands.
The Darklands? The Darklands. This is where you're heading? Bransen, are you listening to yourself? This is madness. I order you to return with me to the Lightkeep. Straight away.
I'm not leaving.
So you refuse to follow the direct order of your superior?
I will follow Madrien to the end of the darkness.
Not only this is insubordination, Bransen, this is also suicide. We need you. We need you alive.
I'm going.
Barudark shook his head and placed his heavy hand on my shoulder, then made a gesture that we should go.
Ghouls smell corpses of other dead ghouls. Soon many's will come. We can't waste no time here. Listen to human bickering. Come.
Not wanting to question my savior, I went with Barudark as he stomped through the dismembered bodies of the ghouls, over which a large mass of flies had already started to gather. Bransen, seeing us leave, stopped talking to Aundria in the middle of his argument and ran after us.
Bransen! Bransen! Come back here right now! Do you hear me? Come back at once!
She shouted, utterly furious, upset and bewildered. She turned around as if to return to the Lightkeep, hesitated, then pivoted sharply and started walking after us.
Lady! Madrien, your name is right. Look, I admire your quest and your desire to find Isabella. She was dear to us all. But don't drag others to their deaths. They know our faces. They know all of us. They know Bransen. They know me. They know Barudark. What do you even mean to do if you ever get to the Black Gates, huh? Fight against the entire Dark Army by yourself? Only you have a face they have not yet seen. Only you have their armor, which our captain was kind enough to give you. Please, Madrien. Only you have a chance to enter the Dark Citadel. I beg you, don't let them die in vain. Bransen will blindly follow you wherever you lead. Barudark will too.
I didn't know what to say. Maybe I was still so engulfed by the grief of my own loss that I couldn't see past it. She grabbed my arm to stop me, but as soon as she did, Barudark grabbed hers and pushed her away from me roughly enough to cause her to drop to the ground. A few more ghouls were now coming behind her. She jumped. Bransen turned and ran over with his sword to the ghouls. Barudark didn't even bother looking back, for the ghouls didn't even approach him, clearly afraid of his size, or perhaps the blood of their own kind on his weapon. Nor did they approach me since I stayed close to Barudark. It seemed they were testing Bransen and Aundria, the only two not already besmirched with the stench of ghoul corpses. Aundria drew her sword and charged toward the ghouls, fighting with pirouettes and sword strokes that were as artfully as they were deadly. Many ghouls fell in her path, and those who did not feared her enough to turn their attention to Bransen. He almost seemed as awkward as I was with the sword. He killed one ghoul that was already injured, but a sturdier ghoul managed to claw away at him until Bransen lost his balance and fell. As he lay on the ground, several ghouls surrounded him, but upon seeing that, Aundria ran over to him and made quick work of dismembering them before they even touched him. Her skillful techniques and maneuvers could not be countered by those brainless creatures. The surviving ghouls, few as they were, scattered away, giving the same respect to Aundria as they did to Barudark, and they were soon swallowed up by the haze, like a dark nightmare dispelled by a bright dawn.
You're getting yourself killed.
Isabella deserves this sacrifice.
Bransen stood, cleaned himself up, and stomped toward me again, his face hardened with rebellion. Aundria sighed, looked back again, then ran over to us.
I have a suggestion to make. Listen, I'll come with you. We'll all escort Madrien till the black gates of the Dark Citadel. Then you'll come back with me, Bransen. If you agree to this, then, well, we might yet live through this day. And I will say nothing of your stark insubordination to the captain.
Tell Baden and the others I'm sorry.
I will do no such thing.
No!
Bransen, please!
No!
You stubborn little... Madrien, please. He won't listen to me, but he might listen to you. Just tell him to only follow you till the Black Gates, and you have my word that I will come with you as well. All right?
I couldn't give her an answer. I just couldn't tell them what to do. Aundria kept pace with us, though she remained some distance behind, as if she did not want to be officially considered part of our company. I occasionally looked back at her and saw her darting her eyes from side to side, and sometimes to the rear, playing lookout. We walked for so long that I began shuffling my feet. My body slumped forward and I started to teeter about. I have to keep going, I told myself. I can't stop. I have to continue for Isabella, for Josh.
Madrien? Are you all right?
I'm all right.
We can rest. Maybe we should rest. Barudark, stop! She needs rest. Madrien needs rest. No, we're not stopping.
Barudark,
interjected Aundria, rapidly closing the distance between us.
She's tired. We should at least stop and rest. Maybe it will help us all think a bit more clearly. Look at her. She's carrying all that weight with all that metal. She's not as strong as you.
She's fine. We keep going. Black Gates are not far.
I'm all right, I said.
No, you're not. You look as if you might faint any minute.
She said fine,
said Barudark, glaring at Aundria.
Leave her be, Aundra. We're not stopping.
I'm fine, I said. Really, I can keep going.
What good are you if you get to the end of your quest and won't have enough strength to finish it? What good are you if you collapse just when you must act? Huh? Tell me. Look, we're halfway to the Darking. There are perfectly good hiding places in the northern hills. We should get there.
I closed my eyes as I trailed off. No, I want to find you, sweetie. I will. Wherever you are, I'll find you. I will bring you back with me. Everything became dark. Chapter 7. The Hilltop Camp. I blinked out of the darkness and instantly wondered how long I'd been out. Even more confusing was that I didn't know if I was asleep in the game world, in real life, or both. I heard my answer to that in the form of the crackling from the campfire. It was as if I didn't have a real life anymore, as if my existence was fully immersed in that moment, in that world. We camped for a while on top of a hill next to some trees that surprisingly still exhibited a bit of green. Barudark dutifully kept watch, squinting into the mist and occasionally turning his eyes on the slopes to make sure no ghouls, wolves, or other creatures in that hellish place would assault us unaware.
You should at least learn how to fight,
said Aundria, wiping her sword clean of the ghoul grime and holding it up to the firelight to see its gleam.
I can teach you. I'm quite good.
She is very good,
Bransen said solemnly as he cooked food over the fire. I watched as she demonstrated some of her moves.
Some, like our orc friend over there, rely on brute force,
she explained, glancing over to Barudark, who was busy keeping vigil watch over the shadows in the horizon.
But others must rely on form and technique.
She spun the sword around and rotated on the shield in a synchronized motion, taking a defensive stance.
That's how lightkeepers are taught to fight.
I looked at her thoughtfully and nodded. It was something Josh had mastered after all, so the least I could try and understand that, I figured. So I complied. Clanging of swords and shields filled the air in our little hilltop camp for the next hour. Barudark kept an eye on Aundria every now and then, and Bransen prepared something of a feast with the few provisions he had. He was the only one who thought to pack for the trip.
You may think I'm against you. I'm not.
Aundria said after a sword-swinging session.
Do not mistake my prudence for ill will. I actually really admired Isabella, maybe even more so than the others, if that's even possible. She was a true inspiration to me. She never hesitated, wavered, or faltered. She was mesmerizing. I couldn't find a flaw in her. She was so sharp and elegant that it made me feel so clumsy. I aspired to be like her, you know? She taught me a lot. Not just how to swing a sword, but also how to stand up against evil. How to shout out and show the world who I really am. She gave me courage.
Aundria fell silent for a bit, then said with a tinge of deep sadness,
I really miss her.
Thank you, I said.
For what?
For saying that. It means a lot to me. Aundria nodded and granted me a faint smile.
I speak the truth, Madrien. She meant a lot to many different people, but especially to the downtrodden. Bransen was in love with her, head over heels, despite the fact she didn't truly love him back. 'Twas a fantasy in his mind. Impossible, but he's never fully let go of the idea. As he saw it, she was his ideal, so when she disappeared, he took it the hardest of all. We sent search parties, but he always pushed for us to send more, to go deeper into the Darklands, beyond all reason and logic. His heartbreak even led him to disobey orders, which he never did before. Going outside the borders of the designated spectrum of patrols, he's almost gotten himself killed in his stubborn determination. Not long ago we managed to rescue him from one particularly precarious situation. He was bleeding badly, and in those moments when we weren't sure if he's going to survive, those were the worst moments of my life, thinking he might be dead. I can't have it again, but here we are, getting closer to the same precipice of death that he was once in. I just wish he could understand Isabella is not his to save. He's so innocent and naive, not as rough as the other militiamen. He remains this way despite how evil and terrifying our world is. Despite having to fight and kill. He would take killing personally, you know. I remember one time where we had to fight and kill a few blackguards. He was so distraught by that and eventually said, surely they would have changed their behavior if they would have just visited our fold and see what nice people we are.
Aundria laughed with that memory, with a tear shimmering in her eye.
It's really rather charming, and I'm glad he's with us, a remnant of the goodness in humanity. I love him like a little brother, and I don't think he would survive without me. I don't want it to be the end for him, just because he loved her so much. He cares for her, even more than he cares for himself.
She sighed and stared at him for a moment as he turned a hunk of meat over the open flame. I understand, I said. I've lost someone like that recently.
You mean other than Isabella?
Yes, I answered. I shouldn't talk about it. I can't. I wish I could have told her that Josh was my son. I wish I could tell her why I'm really here. But I didn't want to break the immersion. I remember clearly what the penalty for that would be. Instead, I sighed and looked at the large orc that stood firmly still. What about Barudark? I asked.
What about him?
Well, he said Isabella meant everything to him, but he didn't tell me why.
The orc is not much of a conversationalist, is he?
She smirked.
Well...
She took a deep breath.
Several years ago, the humans who built the citadel sanctuary of the Lightkeep did so under the mountain of a great orcish tribe. The tribe did not appreciate the uninvited guests on their territory, and a confrontation had begun. Instead of war and bloodshed, both sides agreed to a challenge to settle the dispute of the territory. The greatest human warrior would face against the greatest orc warrior. The orcs have put forth their strongest and greatest of warriors, so big that he had frightened many of our men. That was Barudark. Thankfully, no men had to fight him that day, for the humans have put forth their greatest champion and undefeated warrior, a red-headed woman by the name of Isabella. The orcish tribe, having been isolated in the mountains for so long, knew nothing of her prowess in combat. Nor did they expect the humans to select the female, the smaller and weaker of the genders. They laughed at the humans for what they believed to be blunt foolishness, for not even trying to provide worthy competition to their giant warrior. They had expected Barudark to crush Isabella within seconds. As the battle began, the two stormed at each other, and Isabella met Barudark with such agility, grace, and speed that however strong he was, he could not react fast enough. With one arching sword swing, she injured and stunned him. Never before had he faced such a skillful warrior. Never before had he been defeated so quickly. Never before had he been defeated at all. The orc faced ultimate humiliation when a human female bested him, and as per the terms of the challenge, the victorious Isabella had the right to do with Barudark as she pleased. She refused to kill him. Knowing that he had lost the respect of his tribe, she took pity upon him and invited him into the Lightkeep. Her compassion amazed us all, and Barudark, who struggled to deal with the loss of his identity as a great warrior, had learned to adapt a new identity as the blacksmith of the Lightkeep. Isabella was the only human he has ever truly respected, and the only one who ever managed to defeat him for that matter. And that armor you wore? Isabella's armor? He had forged it for her. I think that may have been part of the reason why he was so mad when he saw you wear it. Now that she has disappeared, Barudark has lost his drive to forge, and his passion to serve the Lightkeep as well.
I see.
Before you came, things seems to have died out for a bit. The denial and anger over her disappearance melted into grief and acceptance for many, and we were all mourning her death. Then, when you showed up, it was like seeing an apparition. I just couldn't believe it. You stirred up raw emotions that were waiting to erupt. Now it appears both Bransen and Barudark have found a glimmer of hope in you. It's like you brought them back to life.
The meat's ready,
declared Bransen, interrupting our conversation. We walked and sat by the campfire. Is there enough for everyone? I asked.
Yes.
We should invite Barudark then, I said.
He won't come. He won't leave his post.
Let's bring the dish to him then, I said. You cooked. You should bring him one. Bransen reluctantly grabbed a bowl and walked to the edge of the cliff where Barudark stood. When he handed a bowl to Barudark, the orc grabbed the bowl and took out a spoon and tossed it to the ground, gulped down all the contents in one swallow, and handed the dish back to the cook before he could even turn back around. As I watched Barudark, looking at the horizon, I had a question that I wanted to ask my companions. Has anyone ever made it to the end of the Darklands? I asked.
No one has lived to tell about it. Back in the old days, when the Lightkeep was just being built, we were spying on them. A few of our spies, wearing the same type of black armor that you wear now, had managed to sneak inside. They reported that they saw the ruins of our old city just inside the Black Gates. But that's the furthest anyone has gotten without...
Your old city, I interrupted.
Yes, it didn't used to be so dark there once. It was a beautiful and thriving city that connected a great many trade routes. Now it's a foul and dismal place, ruins of its former glory, where orcs and demons now dwell in the shadows. And beyond those ruins, all is consumed by darkness and fire. For most good folks, even the few spies that went there, if they manage to get as far as the Black Gates, the very horrors they see there is enough to make anyone want to turn back instantly. But there was one who...
She paused and looked over at Bransen, who was fishing Barudark's spoon out of the dirt.
Bransen, do you remember him?
When my dear granddaughter fell into a coma, I became a broken old man. I so desperately wanted to help her. It was then that I found out the secret she'd been keeping from all of us, the one that drove her to madness. It started when I walked into her room and saw a most peculiar device, something I later discovered was called virtual reality, or VR. I don't know what drove me to do it, but I put the damn thing on my head. Something then happened. My mind went blank, as if I had fallen into a dreamless sleep. When I woke up, I was in another world. I was different, not quite as old, stronger and taller. I suppose in many ways It was what I wanted to be. I noticed that I was carrying all sorts of equipment of some sort of soldier in ancient times. It was then I realized that I stumbled into whatever game Sarah had been playing. Only, it didn't seem like much of a game at the time. At that moment, it felt all too real. I looked around and saw a speck of light on one side and deep, foul darkness on the other. I have no idea why, but something compelled to go toward the darkness. As I walked on, I heard the crunch of earth beneath my feet. I could feel every step like it was my very own, as well as the cold and dusty wind on my face. The more I had walked toward the darkness, the more an essence of evil began permeating into the very air. The smell of burnt air was seeping into my soul, almost as if someone telling me to leave. But I carried on. I arrived to a barren place full of fumes and ashes that looked like the very fields of hell itself. It was there that I saw great demons and monsters with vile, deformed faces and bodies, the harbingers of doom. They were enormous, so much so that their footfalls shook the earth, and my heart with it. These would later haunt me in my sleep for years. I ran from them and hid. Did they see me? Do they know I'm there? Do they know I'm there? I nearly lost my breath, every second thinking their evil eyes are scanning for my soul, that they know where I am, and that they will come around the corner and rip me away with their large claws. I tried to remind myself that it's just a game. I ran, my heart racing faster than my feet. Did they see me? I wondered. Do they know I'm here? The thought nearly took my breath away, and it felt as if they were scanning my soul with their very evil eyes, that they knew where I was hiding, and I was certain that they would come around the corner and rip me away with their large claws at any minute. I tried to tell myself that it's not real, but whether it was a game, a dream, or a reality, I couldn't tell the difference. Then, through the mist, I couldn't believe my eyes. I saw someone, a girl who looked like my Sarah, but as an adult. She was lying on the ashen earth amongst corpses and bones. There she was, just across from all those monsters. I would have run to her, but fear had paralyzed me when I gazed upon those monsters. As I could feel their presence looming nearer, and my heart beating as hard as it ever did, I took my helmet off. As I did, I noticed I have in fact taken the VR off. I went to the hospital the next morning to see Sarah. I had to talk to her, to tell her what I saw. Even I knew she couldn't speak back. When I told her that I saw her in the game, she remained still as ever, but the beeping on the machines near her bed peaked up to a higher volume. Her vital signs were improving, though it was just for a moment, just until I could tell her that I didn't save her, that I was too afraid. Her parents were furious at me when they heard me mention the game. According to them, it had consumed her very life, so I was careful to mention it around them anymore. But when they were not around, I kept asking her, "Tell me what to do. How do I save you, Sarah?" I went back into hell, where I'd just watch her body from the distance, from the same hiding place. I wanted to run to her, but fear had paralyzed me over and over. It seemed suicidal, but I didn't have any other choice. Whether it was courage or insanity, something urged me to wait no longer. I ran to her, ran across that tattered terrain, not minding anything but her. The closer she seemed, the faster I ran. Then I finally reached her. "Sarah?
My Sarah, I said, kneeling beside her. She was as beautiful and real as I could feel her. As I held her in my hands, I saw something in her eyes. Life. She was still holding on to it. Without a second thought, I grabbed her and ran back to the other side. Oh, I ran as fast as I could. Whether monsters had seen me, I couldn't tell. All I knew is that I had to keep running toward the speck of light on the horizon. I ran for what felt like an eternity toward the light that was beckoning at me, growing ever brighter with each footstep. At long last, my legs caved in front of a great fortress, and there I fell, with Sarah's body still in my arms.
The nameless warrior.
Yes, except this one man, the nameless warrior. I couldn't believe it with my eyes when I saw him carrying Kara's body. None of us could. We were all shocked. We knew she had died deep inside the Darklands, beyond the deep darkness, in a place that none of us would dare to go. How did he manage to find her and get her back? Who was he, and where did he know her from? He didn't say. He only demanded that we resurrect her, bring her back to life, he kept saying. When we told him that we couldn't, he got angry, shouted at us about having killed her. We couldn't really understand him. We kept trying to console him until he eventually seemed to have accepted our consolation. He cried for a while and then just told us to bury her, which we did. We gave her the respectful funeral she deserved.
We all cried.
The man then disappeared. We didn't see him for a while, but then one day he came back again to thank us. He told us that by burying Kara, we helped bring a person's life back, but he didn't mention who. He then left soon after, and we've never seen or heard from him again. Strange, isn't it?
I got up and looked at the horizon, perhaps inspired by the rescue story, believing that nothing was impossible. I looked at Barudark, who took it as a sign and immediately put out the fire, as he'd been anxious to go for quite some time. Barudark led the way as we descended from the hill, crossed through the Darklands, and moved toward our destination, as deep and dark as any place could be. Barudark seemed to be familiar with the surroundings, and he mentioned he'd gone that route before to look for Isabella, though he'd never made it into the Black Gates. It was clear that even for him, fear was the reason.
There,
the orc said finally, pointing at the top of the walls that barely peeked above the fog. Came a distant shrill cry from the dark sky. Aundria and Bransen readied their bows and arrows and took aim upward. "What is it?" I asked, horrified. "What is up there?"
Shadow demons,
said Barudark, preparing a throwing axe.
Dwellers of dark skies. You stay behind me.
Madrien, do you have a ranged weapon?
Asked Aundria while looking upward with widened eyes, not knowing where her target would come from. Yes.
Good. Now it is time to use it.
I pulled out the short bow and it somehow fit in the bag I carried. It was a short, crude-looking thing with short fangs attached to its limbs. I hoped I wouldn't have to use it, but the hope was quickly dispelled.
They've spotted us,
said Aundria as shadows passed overhead.
Get ready.
In Josh's drawings, they were so shrouded with fog that it made them even scarier. Though the drawing itself was rather rough compared to his other drawings, I could even see the intense pencil strokes of the fog. Yet the demon in it looked so real and evil. When I finally saw them with my own eyes, they broke through the sky, and then I had seen how vile they truly were. Demons with wings and tails and faces devoid of humanity, like a vile animal, death which haunts you from above. My hands were shaking. I couldn't notch an arrow properly, and it was all going so fast. Barudark threw axes at them, taking down 2 from the air. Aundria and Bransen also managed to hit one demon with 2 arrows and took him down, but more shadows appeared in the sky. More were coming. Within seconds, chaos erupted around me, and my companions fought valiantly, but I was of little help. The last shadow demon flew toward Bransen, who couldn't notch an arrow fast enough, and the demon grabbed him and flew him up into the air.
Bransen!
Yelled Aundria, who shot it and hit it with an arrow, but the creature kept flying with Bransen. At this point, I finally managed to notch an arrow, which I aimed towards that shadow demon. With a shaky hand, I released it, sending it straight toward the beast's leg. It didn't faze the demon either, who adamantly didn't let go of Bransen. Barudark threw a throwing axe with a mighty heave, which struck deep into the thing's head, splattering out whatever was in there. The creature dropped Bransen from the grip of its claws and then fell right on top of him.
No, Bransen.
Barudark grabbed the dead demon, hurled it away from Bransen.
He's injured.
I'm fine,
Bransen protested, spitting blood all the while.
You're not fine. This madness ends now. We're going back.
As Aundria grabbed Bransen, a much larger shadow covered us. We all looked up. Hidden in the misty sky was something that was clearly a lot bigger than shadow demons. But none of us could see what it was exactly.
This is suicide. Bransen, we have to go.
Bransen, dazed and injured, reached out toward Aundria for the first time, and she forcibly pulled him up.
Go!
Yelled at them Barudark, berserk as I'd ever seen him. As we looked up, we saw great wings emerging through the haze. Bransen, unable to walk on his own, had leaned over Aundria, and they both disappeared into the haze. Barudark looked at me, pointing with his weapon toward the black gates.
Run! Now!
He shouted out. Not thinking twice, I ran, bolting into the darkness. As I did, I couldn't help but glance back. The demon had landed. A resounding thud reverberated around the dark hills and the dead trees of the valley. I felt the ripple of the earth that nearly made me fall over. A large fiend was thrice the size of Barudark. It was full of lesions or scars, and its body was in darker hue than the other shadow demons, as though it came from an even more darker plane of evil. He then charged towards Barudark. As Barudark charged toward it, the two giants were on their way to collide with each other. Yet of what occurred thereafter I was unable to bear witness, for the fog engulfed them from my sight. I turned my gaze again toward the gates that were becoming more and more visible. I ran until I had exhausted myself to the last breath. I was almost there, yet I then heard the sound of great thundering wings coming from behind me. I stepped to hide behind a rock. Right above me I could clearly see the giant, evil, spiking wings of that creature. It was passing through, flying up and away, much to my relief. As I continued to look at the terrifying being, I had also noticed that in one of the creature's claws, it was holding something. A body. It was Barudark's. Its mutilated and lifeless form was almost beyond recognition. Chapter 9. The Black Gates. Just like that, I was once again alone. Alone in the shadows. Alone in the darkness. Right in front of me were the black gates. They were immense. The large walls on either side of them spanned up 10 times the size of the citadel. 2 colossal figures stood still by the gates, sentries armed with double-sided axes, and I couldn't tell if they were statues or living guards. I waited for a moment, and neither figure moved. As I took one step closer, as though I've triggered something, the statues lowered their axes until they hit the ground. For a moment I thought they were stone coming to life, but then a great thudding mechanism sounded off. And sure enough, the large gates slowly creaked open. I took a deep breath and walked inside, crossing inside into what appears to be the very passage into hell itself. Inside were a few dark watchtowers and a crude battlemented structures. I had also noticed ruins strewn about, burnt and black. Are these the remnants of the lost city that Aundria spoke about? There were several black-armored orcs patrolling the place, but they didn't even do a double take when they passed me on their back-and-forth route. They occasionally grunted but said nothing. Are they also AI, I wondered? It was at that moment that I saw something that made my blood curdle. By the largest of towers around, I saw characters. They moved and interacted with each other, told me they were definitely not AI. These were players that were portraying evil. Something about merely seeing them had just enraged me. Who do they think they are? Could one of them be Isabella's killer? Heartbeats going faster and faster. I kept approaching them until fear buckled my legs and I could hear them talking. I stood still, far enough for me to eavesdrop, but looking away, pretending I'm minding my own business. I then heard them clearly. At first they spoke about matters that I couldn't quite understand, mentioning names I didn't know or talking about the beastly and inferior nature of orcs, or the various types of demons that are under the dominion of the Dark Lord controls. But then someone dared to instigate a different topic. "Why don't we simply attack the Light Keep?" asked a white-haired girl dressed in black, twirling a serrated blade knife in her hand. "We could easily be done with them."
The Dark Lord decides everything, Deirdra,
said a deep-voiced man dressed in robe, a hood almost hiding most of his pale face.
There's a reason for keeping the Light Keepers alive.
Another man joined the conversation, tall, square-jawed with smooth, long raven hair, matching the color of his armor. He was remarkably handsome, I remember thinking, even disturbingly so.
What Siegemond is trying to say, dear, is that if we attack and kill them all, we won't have any more fun with them. So then we'll start killing each other off out of sheer boredom, like savages.
He glanced at a large armored orc that stood behind Siegemond, then looked back at Deirdra.
You understand?
Indeed,
said Siegemond, pressing his palms together, revealing his sharp fingernails through the thick sleeve of his robe, which were almost like claws.
Sebastianus is right. The Light Keep mustn't be completely obliterated. They provide our soldiers with a sense of superiority over these lands. If that is removed, internal conflict and infighting is inevitable. We cannot afford to self-destruct.
Then why did he kill Isabella? She asked, forcing me to stifle a gasp as the name was mentioned.
Shh, we don't talk about it,
said Siegemond.
It's a banned topic.
Until the army sees her body, they won't believe it,
said Sebastianus.
Did you not hear me? I said we don't talk about it. If you are any wiser, you shall discontinue this discussion, unless you wish to incur the Dark Lord's wrath.
Why? Asked the girl. I thought he...
Quiet!
Yelled Siegemond in a deeper, fouler voice than before. He had been morphing, turning larger. Deirdra was so startled she paced back quickly. What is he, I wondered. But before I had found out the answer, he appeared to be morphing back to his human form. Sebastianus chuckled dismissively.
Whatever,
he said. Then he turned around to casually survey the area. Shit! I quickly looked away, but it was too late.
You there, soldier. Have you something to say about our conversation?
I shook my head.
Take off your helmet. Let us see your face.
Damn it. I silently raged, terrified, and just staring at him.
Well, are you slow?
Dumb as an orc, perhaps, Deirdra chimed in.
Take off that helmet, you,
Sebastianus said, quickly approaching.
Or I'll remove it for you.
Reluctantly, I pushed the helmet up and off my head.
Ah, a lady. How intriguing. My dear, that headgear doesn't do you justice. I haven't seen you before here. What's your name?
Mad? I mumbled, too stunned to finish.
Mad? What kind of name is that? I do like it, though. It's certainly unique.
He turned to the group.
Mates, meet Mad,
he declared to them, and then laughed and looked at me.
Scares off enemies, I suppose. I'm Sebastianus, commander of the Blackguards. This is Deirdra, my right hand.
He gestured toward the girl. Don't let her pretty face deceive you. She'll stick a knife in you if you even look at her the wrong way. Deirdra nodded apathetically toward me, slightly wrinkling her nose.
And that gloomy man right there is Siegemond, our quartermaster.
Well met, I said.
Well met indeed,
Sebastianus said with a grin.
Are you a new recruit, love?
I nodded.
Have you been through no man's land?
Yes.
All by yourself?
He suddenly frowned. Yes.
And you survived. Impressive.
He paced around me, evaluating me from head to toe where I stood.
Even I wouldn't go out there alone. You must harbor many hidden talents. Let's see just how skillful you are, he
said. Then he drew his sword. I hesitated for only a moment before pushing the helmet back onto my head and reluctantly withdrawing my weapon. As soon as my sword was out of the half-scabbard, he swung at me. Thankfully, I remembered what Aundria taught me and parried the hit well. He smirked and swung again, and I parried again, but it took more force to hold the sword steady that time. He appeared to be exerting more and more force with each blow, as if he was toying with me. The last hit was just too powerful, and it knocked the sword right out of my hand.
I'm rather disappointed. You're not that talented after all, and you don't quite live up to your name. Perhaps luck carried you here. In the future, I don't suggest traveling alone,
he said arrogantly as he sheathed his sword. I nodded and looked away, wishing he would already leave me alone. Instead, he took a few steps toward me.
Don't take the loss too hard, darling. Very few can match my skills,
he bragged, then grabbed me by the neck of the armor, pulled me closer, picking off my helmet.
We don't recruit your type,
he said, staring into my eyes.
I know you are not who or what you claim you are. You don't belong here, do you?
He pushed me roughly to the ashen ground and tossed away my helmet.
That armor does not belong to you either. Siegemond, whose is it?
Siegemond stepped closer and examined the armor.
I reckon it belonged to Yara. She was brave, but rather brash, and not too bright. She died a long time ago at the hands of the Lightkeepers, and her items were never seen since. Well, until now.
So, the Lightkeep sent you. In armor they pillaged from our dead, no less. What bothers me more than anything is that we haven't picked out a spy here in many moons. What is behind this newfound foolishness? One must wonder. Why would the Lightkeep send a spy now?
No one sent me, I yelled, scrambling to my feet. I came here on my own volition, and I'm not a spy. In fact, they tried to convince me not to come here, said I would meet my death. I do not choose sides here. I am not part of your damn war. I do not care for your conflict with them. I just want to find out what became of Isabella. That's the reason I'm here.
So you came all this way for that?
Siegemond asked, his face drawn with awe and an inquisitive frown that he slowly approached me. Can you please tell me?
I don't think you would understand the answer if you heard it. You need to see it.
See it?
Yes, run further toward the darkness.
She pointed west.
Into the deep, black void. Further and further until you reach the end of darkness. You may find your answer, or you may find death.
She's not going anywhere. Not until I have a bit more fun with her.
I don't have time for games, I said sullenly, holding my ground.
'Tis said that life is just a game, wouldn't you say?
He narrowed his eyes at me.
A game where some are winners, some are losers, some don't even deserve to play. Which one are you, Mad?
An orc came running up.
Sire! Big demon feasting on orc's flesh.
Which one, idiots? Sebastianus said. Names, say names, always say names.
Balal? Bafal? Bal? Blubberal?
I believe he's referring to Baphael.
Baphael is eating one of our orcs?
Can't tell if it's ours, sir. We're afraid to get close to Big Demon.
Let him be. I think there may be spies afoot,
he said. Then he pushed the panic orc away and returned his harsh gaze to me.
You didn't come here alone after all, did you, Mad? If you truly have no involvement in our conflict, tell us how many were you and which way you came from, and I shall let you go.
I began, not sure what to say.
My offer won't stand forever. Don't test my patience.
There were 3 others with me, 2 lightkeepers and an orc. We went through a type of shallow valley with dead trees and craggy hills, I told him. Then we were attacked by a flying pack of demons. The orc didn't make it.
The Orc-Tooth Pass,
Sebastianus said, and immediately smiled.
I can see you spoke the truth. Well done, Mad. No second thoughts, even. You truly have no conscience or feelings. You truly have no conscience or feelings for your companions who most likely defended you with their lives to have you reach all the way here. You've just sold them for torture and death. Congratulations. You surprise me, Mad. Are you sure you don't want to stay with us? You have such vile instincts. You would fit right in as a blackguard.
I am not a part of this, I yelled.
You're more a part of it than you think.
Please, just leave them alone.
That wasn't a part of the deal. The deal was simple. You've kept your side of it. Now I shall keep mine. I shall let you go.
The man sheathed his sword. I saw many orcs up ahead, Some of them had looked at me with an unnerving gaze. What about them? I asked.
Our agreement did not account for orcs. Perhaps it should have. Fear makes us take hasty decisions, doesn't it, Mad? Well, what are you waiting for? Go. Find your answer. Isn't that why you just sold off your friends?
All I could do was run, so I did. I sprinted past the orcs, though I could feel them running behind me, even arrows as they were flying at arm's length from me. Even as the darkness grew deeper, I kept running for life. Even when I could hear no sound behind me, I ran still. My heart felt a pang of guilt. Did I just get Aundria and Bransen killed? Did I truly condemn them for torture and death? I hoped not. But I couldn't get myself to think of them. Not at that moment. No, I could think of Josh. And I did. So then is everyone else just collateral damage for me? Usable? Exploitable? Expendable? Maybe, but that answer didn't sit well with me. Am I a bad person for this? I mean, they're just characters, aren't they? Players, I don't know. Josh was real. Josh I knew and loved. This is why I'm here. I ran and ran and ran. I ran deeper and deeper, further and further into that consuming darkness. I ran so far, it's gotten pitch dark, but I still kept running to what felt like an eternity. Finally, a bit of light crept through, and I saw that this was a place where the haze was so thick I couldn't see the skies any more. I then saw great columns that rose up, swallowed in the haze above, appeared as though they were going on forever into the sky. And then I noticed that people were chained to these columns, but they appeared to be completely frozen in time. I wanted to call Callum, but I had lost grip with reality by then, so I did the only thing that somehow made sense to me. Surrey, call Callum, I said, hoping it would work. Surrey, call Callum, I screamed. I did it again and again. I then heard this muffled, low-pitched sound.
Hello.
Callum, hello?
Melinda, hello?
I heard another muffled sound.
Melinda!
Callum, if you can hear me, shout!
Melinda?
I finally heard dimly.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I exclaimed.
Yes. Oh, finally. I've been trying to reach you for hours.
I think I somehow made it to the end of the game, I said to Callum. I see people, characters chained to these gigantic pillars. They're not moving, any of them. They're like frozen in time. Old and young, men and women. Some even look like they're wearing the Lightkeep uniforms. I even see other races, not just humans. Elves and dwarves. They all seem sad, dejected, crestfallen even. It's like their spirit has been completely shattered. What is this place?
What you appear to be describing, I think you may be looking at history, at heroes of a golden era, warriors of the past. Now they're but shadows and ghosts. Their players will never return.
I walked around the misty place and examined the characters in great detail. I could imagine that once someone poured all their love and creativity to creating them. Behind each of them, a real person. Now they're unsung heroes, the forgotten ones, their fate interwoven with that of the game world, their stories forever trapped here. Now there was no one to breathe life into them, no one to personify them. It's almost just as sad as real death. To think that they were once alive, that someone lived in this game world through them, just like my son Josh did. Joshua. Is Isabella here? I began losing my breath as soon as the thought came to my mind. I ran from character to character, around every pillar, carefully examining the faces around me. A red-headed woman? Her face was burnt in my mind. My heart was beating fast. My mind was processing all of those different faces. Not that one, not this one, not her. There were a few red-headed women, but they were not Isabella. None of them were. Then a voice had startled me. It was neither mine nor Callum's.
You're not one of them.
It was a man that was chained to one of those great pillars.
When blackguards come, it's to mock or torture us, to reminisce about how they killed us, and to take delight in our demise and misery. You're not a blackguard. You're different. I can see that.
You're alive, I said, shocked.
Alive? If you can call it that. I wish I died a respectful death in the field of battle, a warrior's death. They captured me a few days ago, yet they didn't kill me. What you see around you, This is how they torture us, keeping us as living trophies with their dark magic, forever alive and helpless, chained to these accursed pillars till the end of times. Soon I will join the others, and my spirit will drift away in desperation. But I would never truly be released from my corporeal form. I don't know who you are, but if you're of a good heart, you can change it.
How?
Kill me. Kill me now, so I can finally depart for good. Please, give me a more respectful ending than this. Slice my head off, or put one into my heart. Whatever you choose, just end this agony for me.
I don't know if I can do this. I looked at my sword.
Do it. Don't be afraid. Give me my ending. That's all I ask for.
I stared at his face intently, memorizing every detail. If I was going to go through with it, I wanted to get a good look at the person I was about to kill. He was quite ordinary looking, young with a short beard, and a glimmer of honesty in his eyes. I drew my sword fearfully.
Put weapon away.
A deep, guttural voice disturbed us. It was a large orc dressed in armor.
No one kills pillar prisoners without master's permission.
He grunted, and drew his own sword.
Put weapon away.
As soon as I sheathed my sword, the creature snorted, turned around, and just walked away. That was a tad strange, a lot strange, I thought. Something about the way it moved, the way it talked, was very perfunctory. I felt I had to try something. I unsheathed my sword again. The creature stopped and turned toward me in the exact same manner.
Put weapon away.
I quickly sheathed my sword. The orc sharply turned around and walked away again, almost like it was functioning on a loop. Just one more time, I drew my sword again.
Put weapon away.
I sheathed it. The orc had predictably turned away. It's definitely not a player. It's AI. Maybe I can get it to tell me the answer now that no one is around. Maybe it's somewhere in its programmed memory. I walked toward him. Hey, you there, I called. The creature stopped. Where is Isabella?
Move along.
Who killed her? Who killed Isabella?
Move along.
Leave him. It's just a scripted guard. It doesn't know anything.
The orc resumed walking away. How did Isabella die? I asked again. The creature made a strange, sudden stop in mid-motion. It seemed frozen in time, but then turned to me in a jerking motion.
Master killed her, twisted her little neck like tiny worm. Crack, snap.
What the fuck? Artificial intelligence, are you sure? A little too emotionative for artificial intelligence, in my opinion. That laughter seemed viciously real and improvised.
Master took exceptionally great pleasure in killing her. He made sure to watch her as she was writhing in pain, bleeding to death by his feet.
Callum, how do I fight it? I want to kill that motherfucker.
She suffered lots. Master made sure.
Don't. It's just a stupid AI creature. Leave it alone.
If it was ever AI, there's nothing artificial about it now. I'm telling you, I can see the way it talks and walks. It's a fucking player, Callum. Either that or some dungeon master is now behind it. I drew my sword again.
Put weapon away.
The creature ordered, louder than before. The voice was the same, but the intentions and the hand movements were clearly different. As he aggressively approached, drawing his own sword.
Melinda, what are you doing?
I narrowed my eyes at the orc, pointing at it with my sword.
Melinda, don't. Put your weapon away before it's too late. You're still a low-level character. You don't have enough skills to challenge it. You're gonna die.
Put weapon away. This is your last warning,
he said, stomping toward me till he was just meters away.
Or I'll make of you like Master did to Isabella.
I unstrapped my shield and took position. Fuck this shit. The creature ran over and rammed into me, his brute power and size knocking me off my feet to the ground. I quickly pushed myself up, but he came at me again in a hurry. This time he swung his sword at me, and I swung back. Our swords clanged, and in that momentary flare which fused our swords together, his sword broke mine off, leaving me with only a hilt and a piece of cut metal. No weapon, I backed away and held my shield in front of me. He took another violent swing which broke my shield off and knocked me to the ground. I quickly crawled away and pulled myself up by a column, grabbing my broken hilt at the process. The orc charged again, and in an act of desperation, I threw it at the orc. The orc held its shield forward, blocking its eyesight in order to protect its face, but suddenly I saw him stumble and trip. I noticed it was thanks to one jutted-out leg of that prisoner. The orc fell to the ground, dropping his sword and smashing into the column that stood behind me as I sidestepped to avoid him. I grabbed his sword from the earth and pierced it right into him, ripping through his heart into whatever soulless void he had in there. "That's for Isabella, scum!" I proclaimed with the greatest of glee. Every part of his face became bloodied, and I stared at it with lustful glee. Vengeance was sweet. The orc's lifeless body fell to the ground. I then approached the man who had helped me to give him his wish. "Thank you," I said. "You saved me."
That was your first kill.
"Yes," I admitted.
You did well.
"You did well," he smiled. A true smile, full of joy.
Are you ready to save me now?
Yes. Without further hesitation, I held my newfound heavy blade with 2 hands and pierced his midsection.
Thank you.
He mouthed, and his head dropped. I pulled the blade out, full of blood from both the orc and the man I'd killed. The earth began to shook and rumble in monstrous roar that was so loud and vile that I covered my ears and dropped to my knees. I heard the thunderous reverberations of wings, and it blew so much air it cleared most of the mist, and if I didn't hold to a column, it would have cleared me as well. I feared it was a shadow demon, but those fears paled in comparison to the horror that overcame me when a huge armored dragon landed in the chamber, near an elevated area where a black throne stood with burning candles on top of it. The dragon's rider was armored to the teeth in a dark, metallic full plate and a devilish horned helmet. That demon. I know that demon. "Callum, are you seeing this?" There was no response. "Who are you?" I asked.
"Your nightmare,"
he answered in a vile, deep, ghastly voice. Little did he know how much he was right. There was no mistaking it. That was the demon I saw when I discovered my dead son. I recognized those haunting eyes, the eyes of demon from my nightmares. He disembarked from his dragon while I found myself unable to move. Fear had paralyzed my soul. You're him. I saw you. I saw you fighting Isabella. I saw you when you watched her die."
"You were not on the battlefield."
"No. I saw you from another plane of life."
"You come thenceforth to seek revenge."
His eyes flared red for a moment. "I come to seek answers."
"How disappointing."
His eyes dulled back into blackness. "I'm not a fighter." I cast the orc's sword away. "I'm not a hero. Please, just tell me why. Why did you do it? Why did you kill Isabella?" The devil had then paced to his throne and sat down, not answering. "Why did you?" I asked, daring to take one more step.
"She had to die. She broke the rules."
"What rules?"
"She killed those not meant to be killed. She rendered immortals mortals, took the lives of demigods and greater demons. She had to die. I had to kill her. I am the Dark Lord himself. No one can defeat me."
"Is it all just a game for you?" I asked. "It can't be that. It can't be that," I mumbled.
"A game? No, this is not a game."
His eyes flared red again. He got up and walked down the stairs of his throne as the foul metal boots were crushing the stones beneath him. Wide-eyed I watched the formidably demonic armored figure as he reached and grabbed me by the throat, lifting me into the air. My muscles tensed. I could feel real pain. I felt I was losing breath in real life.
"Squirm, worm."
I was gasping for air.
You can feel this, can you? Now you understand.
I struggled helplessly.
More north. More.
He spoke to his dragon. The dragon flapped his wings mightily once, and all the mist disappeared, even that which lingered further away. The land of fire and darkness unfolded in all its malice. The entire dark terrain, the fires and the lava-filled craggy mountains, an infinite army of orcs. But not only orcs, shadow demons patrol the deep dark skies, and other devils and demon kinds sprung up through the hellfire, while black guards waited in the red mist. His army seemed infinitely big.
Are you ready to die now, Madrien? You have your answer. Your quest is over.
The dragon lunged forward at me, grabbing me in its claws, and flew into the air, carrying higher and higher, until all I saw was dark fog below. He then quickly dived down, and as my view cleared, I saw a forest of dead trees, which the dragon was heading to. Shortly before landing in a clearing, the dragon let loose of me, and I tumbled to the ground in a heap of bruises and scrapes. I was dazed, my vision blurred, and I could barely stand. The dragon flew away. I looked around me and saw dark figures approaching through the dead trees, blackguards. What should I do? Should I stay in the game or should I log off? Logging off right here and now would be equivalent to death. But then, if I keep playing, won't I just be a part of their sick little game of torture? I decided to stay in the game. I wasn't ready to die. I ran through twisting and winding dead trees. All the while I could feel the blackguard's presence behind me. I didn't make much headway before I felt my legs entangled. The roots of a tree tightened around my legs, and branches in the shapes of a hand closed around on me, lifting me into the air, holding me out like a present to the blackguards for my execution. I watched them approaching, those black armored figures, torches, swords, axes, scythes, and flails. I couldn't see any faces. Everything was becoming blurry. A whip hit my arm. I screamed out of pain as it easily penetrated the fragmented piece of dark leather armor. Arrows that were fired hit near my ear or above my head. They were torturing me, and I could feel every little bit of it. I couldn't keep watching. I snapped off the VR and pulled myself back from the monitor, unwilling to watch my death, Madrien's death, any further. As I was ready to leave the room, a message popped up on the monitor. It said Callum was connected to the server. What the fuck? Seeing Callum was connected, I rushed back to the computer and put the VR back on. As I opened my eyes, everything was a blur at first. I could see the pool of my ground blood and felt my head spinning. Did I return just in time for my execution? Life was fading away from me, but then, fast as lightning, a bluish shadow emerged. Someone ghostly fast was fighting off all the blackguards. Through the blur, I saw a figure moving with demonic speed and skills, cutting and slashing all of my aggressors as though they were nothing to him. All the blackguards that were there were lying dead on the ground, and I was lying there amongst them. My savior approached me like a guardian angel, light seemingly appearing to shine behind him. Had offered its hand, but then everything suddenly went dark.